cold and frosty morning, early in January. I'm going to walk out the village and round part of Bicker Fen. And we're just walking out the village now. You can see on in front of us there's the Bicker. The dike runs through the middle of the village. Obviously man-made drainage. But it's quite a unique village. It's one of the only villages that I can recall that's got this water feature running right through the middle of it. So we're going to walk out the village. We're going to walk out through Rookery Road and head up towards the fen and to the wind farm and the solar farm that's being constructed up there at the moment. Hopefully we're going to get a few good shots of a sunrise. It's about a 5-kilometre walk around. Hopefully we'll get to see some nice things on the way round. Just pause for a while and watch the sun win over the church. So walking out of the village now, Rookery Road. Nice row of trees on our left hand side. Always look good in the sunset. Sunset's just beyond those woods in the distance. Does look quite spectacular. I'll put a shot in there if I can. Obviously not taken this morning because the sun would be rising in the wrong place if it was. Hopefully the sun is rising behind us. And Rookery Road. Looking towards Donington Church. Across in the distance. And again around towards that sunrise from behind us. Coming up on the left is Sycamore House. I've got an old black and white photograph of Sycamore House. Not quite sure if it's the same one though. I think there's another Sycamore House in the village. I wonder if anybody could tell me in the comments. Is this the Sycamore House in the black and white photograph there? Obviously it's changed considerably over the years. I think so named because of the sycamore tree that stands outside, rather splendid. And we head up now on towards the wind farm and the new solar farm complex that is being built. I think there's a couple of solar farms being built on the fen. We'll have a look at them when we get a bit closer. Old farmyard on the left. I think guessing that looks pretty much like it did 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, probably even longer than that. So coming up on the left hand side now, this is Freest Lane, or it joins Freest Lane. That actually goes out onto the main road down there. They're using it at the moment for construction traffic coming on and off the solar farm site. So it must have served a purpose at one point during its existence, but I'm led to believe that Freest means free in possibly Danish. So I guess the land that sits right in front of us now would have been at one point free land. People could come and graze their sheep or cattle on that land, like a common land almost. It's certainly not that today, but Freest Lane. It's quite a nice little walk down there and round back square into the village again. Cowbridge Road. I guess we've turned north, pointing towards Sleaford. Got the wind farm on our left, and we're just coming up to where they're building the new, or one of the new, solar farms. So Cowbridge Road, at the end of this road there is a bridge, and one presumes that back in the day, as is convention around these parts, I do love the simplistic way they name roads. Cowbridge Road suggests that the bridge at the end of this road was used to drive cows across. There are actually two bridges, one a little bit further on as well. The first bridge crosses the Hammond Beck, which is kind of a tributary drain to the 40 foot. Again, really great example of naming things. The 40 foot, I think it's sometimes also called the Black Sluice drain, but more commonly known as the 40 foot. Remember when I first moved to these parts, asking the local why it was called the 40 foot. There's a very simple answer to that question. Because it's 40 foot across. It was of course dug by hand in the 1800s as part of a drainage scheme, although I think it probably existed slightly before that, but in its modern format, part of the drainage system for the fens around these parts was dug by hand and is 40 foot across. So the Hammond Beck runs into that at some point a bit further to the east of the village, but the first bridge, which I presume is where Cowbridge gets its name from, but there is another one a little bit further on as well as you head towards the 40 foot drain. We're not going to go that far today though. We're going to cut through and do a circuit which is about 5 kilometres long. Very occasionally, actually more often than not to be fair, I do bump into bird of prey up this road. I believe it's a buzzard, unless anybody can, well, we've got to see it first. If we see it, hopefully somebody can confirm that it is a buzzard. I think it is a buzzard. Doesn't seem to be about today, typical. Normally residing in these trees to the right of us, and just sometimes out in that open field. We'll keep an eye open, see if we can see it as we walk towards the building site, which is where they're putting up the new solar farm. And there is the new solar farm to our left. It stretches as far as the eye can see, from the road at least, right the way down through those woods. Obviously they haven't got the panels in yet. I just wonder, the jury's for me is, I like the wind. The wind farm doesn't really offend me greatly. I know that's probably quite controversial to say around these parts, but it looks quite majestic. I mean, we've got those pylons and we've had them for years, and it's a necessary evil in the modern world, I guess. We want all this power to consume. I think the wind farm, the wind wheels do look quite majestic as they mill around. I'm not quite sure what they do to the local bird population, but that's for another day. I'm not so convinced about solar power. It seems to be they've taken an awful lot of good farmland. Is it good farmland? Perhaps somebody can tell me in the comments, is this up here, is this not great farmland? Or not as great as the other bits? The definition of irony there. Solar wind farm. A solar wind farm, what am I talking about? A solar farm, the construction of which is powered by, you guessed it, a diesel generator. And it's kicking out a bit of noxious diesel fumes. I suppose that is a necessary evil. Sun energy. Play on the words sun and energy, I guess. Bicker Fen solar farm. I think that ought to be 2 words, to be fair. Bicker Fen. Well, all being well, you should have had some nice drone footage of the solar farm by now. Got a good view of it today. Remarkable how extensive it is, how far it goes back. Incredible. If I just spin you around here for a little bit, you can see, oh, look at that, that's a lovely, hopefully the camera's picking that up, a shot of the sun coming up over that barn in the distance. That's not the reason for me spinning you around though, as glorious as that is. This bit of land in front of us to my right going down Cowbridge Road, always fascinated how that's been sort of left, it's not farmed as such. I wonder why. Is it just a bad piece of land? Is it wet? Or is it intentionally left like that? Perhaps they breed the birds in there, I don't know. Perhaps somebody can tell me in the comments. Now, the sun really is coming up behind us now. Glorious sunrise on a cold and frosty morning. I do hope the camera is doing that justice. Yeah, so over in the distance there, you can see just about those two big sheds. That's the Viking link converter. That's where we take power from Denmark, hence the name Viking. And we swap power with them. When their wind is blowing, we take their electricity and vice versa, although I think they probably provide us with more than we provide them. So the windmills, I do think they look quite majestic. What would you rather have? Solar panels or windmills? Because we are going to get them whether we like it or not, aren't we? So coming across now towards the end of my bit of Cowbridge Road, and there's a bridge in the foreground there. That is the bridge over the Hammond Beck. It's got a date on that bridge, 1930 something. I guess there was a bridge there before that. That beck would have been built as a part of the general drainage system around here. As I say, that flows into the 40-foot a little bit further east of the village. And we come turning around now into Long Hedge Drove. Keeping on the theme of simple naming, as you can see when we come around the corner to our right, there is a long hedge. So why not call it Long Hedge Drove? Be nice and simple then, wouldn't it? There you go. There's a nice shot of Long Hedge Drove. We're going to walk down towards, let's get a shot of that sun as we pan across. You can see it's really coming up now over in the east, and we're walking at right angles to that, so we're kind of northeast-ish. Sleaford away to our left. On a clear day like today, you can sometimes see the energy recovery facility, or the incinerator, to give it its less glamorous title, Sleaford. Sometimes you can see that from here. I can't quite see it today. I'll pan around. Can't quite see a chimney blowing out anything in the distance there, but sometimes you can on a nice clear day. Sleaford must be about 12 miles as the crow flies, so uninterrupted view across the flat fenland. Magnificent on a morning like this. It's actually quite magnificent at any time, really, to be fair. I came up here the other day when it was very cloudy, misty, foggy, murky. It was actually quite you could hear absolutely everything from miles around. It was the fog was holding in the sound. It was quite incredible. We're coming up. There's a house on our right hand side here that when we first moved to the area was a wreck. I wouldn't quite say abandoned, but it was certainly a wreck, and somebody bought it and has converted it, or has recovered it, renovated, that was the word I was looking for, has renovated it, and they've done a smashing job. They really have, and it's in a super position. I mean, I don't need to tell you that, waking up on a sunny morning with that view, is going to be stunning. So well done to whoever has bought that and had taken the time, effort, trouble and no doubt money to restore it back to its former glory. As some people may not like the white cladding. This, for coming at it from this side, it's not finished yet. This is not been clad this side, but it does look very, very nice. So well done to those people that have seen the potential in that house, and they've restored that lovely little house. It's probably been there 100 years, and they've restored that to something like its former glory. In fact, I'm sure they've improved on it. That's a really, really, really nice view. So walking down towards Butler's, so called because on the corner of this long hedge drove was a small holding, and it was farmed back in the 70s by a character called John Butler. Now John Butler was quite an eccentric by all accounts. There was actually the BBC actually came and did a documentary on him back in the 70s and the way he lived. He was an organic farmer, even when back in the days when we weren't really quite sure what the word organic meant. So farming without artificial chemical interference. And he did that back in the 70s and lived a very, very meagre life up here on the fen. And the documentary really does go into some detail about how harsh life was for a smallholder up in the fens of Lincolnshire. Quite an interesting documentary. It's still available on YouTube if you want to look it out. John Butler. So we're coming up towards Butler's farm. It's been rebuilt since the days of John Butler and the documentary, and it is now a rather gorgeous house in a super position. But they kept the name. They kept the name Butler's, which is great homage to John Butler. I believe he's still alive. The religious guy. Lived up here, as I say, in a very meagre existence, trying to farm a small holding, which I believe was to our right now. As we walk towards it, it's now a rather beautiful lake. But what a stunning landscape. A gorgeous, frosty, early January morning. You know, that shot really does need no commentary, does it? Absolutely stunning. There's Butler's farm there to our right. It's rebuilt since the days of John Butler. A rather gorgeous property now. The A17 running across the top from left to right. Normally quite busy this time of the morning. And they're heading towards the 40-foot drain. You can see now again the Bicker drain that runs through the Bicker O, as it's called, E-A-U, French word for water. Even I know that. And this is where it comes out the village completely there. It takes a little bit of a twist to the right, joins up with the Hammond Beck, which then flows into the 40-foot towards Swineshead Way. Two choices here. The road to our left is called 4-lane, F-O-R-E, and the road straight ahead is called back lane. Again, very economic with the naming of the roads. They run parallel to each other. I think we'll stick to back lane. Better view of the sunrise. It's now risen. Forecast for today is more of the same. Clear skies, cold temperatures, and make the most of it. So very much heading east now, due east back down towards the village. You can see the village over there on the right. I guess that's what we call the new houses. Mixed feelings about that. Obviously, any development around these beautiful parts is a blight on the landscape. Although, you know, obviously I appreciate that all the houses were new once and encroaching on the village, but those houses were left in a state of unfinishedness. Is that a word? For a while. I think the developer may have had some issues, but somebody's come along now and finished them off, and I believe there are people living in them now, and we certainly see signs of activity down there. And I guess that's good. You know, we don't want them sitting there as empty shells like they were all for well over a year. Unfinished empty shells. It didn't look great. So now they're getting finished off and people are starting to move in. And whilst not ideal, any new building is not ideal. At least they're not sitting there as empty shells. So to our left now, Gauntlet House, which is gorgeous looking house. Gauntlet Farm. Not quite sure where the name Gauntlet comes from. Actually, signposts are actually on the road maps. Anybody could tell me in the comments, I'd be grateful. There is, I don't know if you saw that or if the camera picked that up, but I think that's our friend the buzzard. Not quite sure how much of that you got. So we come up towards the end of back lane. It rejoins 4 lane, and as we turn down in towards the village, we again have a choice of roads. Gauntlet Road, the road that leads to Bicker Gauntlet, on our right, and Cemetery Road. Now I wonder what that's named after. Just a reminder that this has been a 5-kilometre walk around, circular walk, and I've had one car it's a road walk. Yeah, it's not off-road, it's a road walk. Well, one car come past me, and it's a normal, it's not a school morning, but it's a normal morning. One car in 5 kilometres. I don't know where there's many places where you could do a 5-kilometre road walk and come across just one car. So there we are, chosen Gauntlet Road, Cemetery Road running just the other side of the dyke. So back down towards the village. What a great walk that's been. It is actually getting a little breezy now. We came around the corner, felt the breeze, and you can see probably in the distance the windmills are chugging away quite nicely. It's feeling a little breezy. So there we are then, as we walk back down towards the village of Bicker. What a beautiful village it is as well, not in a chocolate box kind of thatch cottage sense, but it has some very unique defining features. The dyke running through the middle for a start, wonderful church at the centre of the village, and all these beautiful white wooden railings and bridges that cross the dyke. So that's been a great walk this morning out on Bicker Fen. Obviously we didn't go all the way around the fen, it's huge, but that was a 5-kilometre run around the village as we come back down towards the village centre now. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and hopefully I've managed to cut in some of the aerial footage as well, which should be quite interesting.